these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
Okay, cool. I can dig it. The grind is always easier when you keep going. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Professional Hippies. We're your hippies, and today we have an extra hippie. If you recognize this hippie, show him some love on the interwebs. But today we have our buddy, Joey, the one and only, baby. What's good, Joey? What's good? Hey, we've all had some major stuff going on, and you've been in the thick of it with us, huh?
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. Got a lot to talk about. We've all made major milestones and grown in many ways, so excited to hash this one out.
Yeah, and if you want to help us grow, by the way, because we want to be showers, not growers, be sure to leave us a review, subscribe to the show. If you're looking to grow anything outside of the show, the algorithm with us, the Professional Hippies, head on over to testkitplus.com/professional hippies. They'll help you out there with staying safe. We're still working on getting our Northspore affiliation back established. So any of the mycologists out there, you can still check out our link tree for that stuff, right, Dylan? Yeah. We'll be getting that cleared up again if you need anything like that. So professional hippies, you decide what that means for you. By the end of this episode, might have a new definition. I don't know. So, hey fellas, how you doing?
Doing good. I'm sitting in Dylan's torn up house right now. He's going through a bunch of renovations.
That's awesome.
Is your house still Armageddon?
Oh, it's it's post Armageddon. So when Armageddon happened and then the post Armageddon, where it still looks like hell. Yeah.
You're on the back end of when the nuke drop, civilization is beginning to reestablish itself.
Exactly. We're going through the build. We're on the other side, right? The teardown is complete. The chaos is still happening, but more of a what the hell are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I must say, walking into the house today with shit thrown everywhere made me really feel right at home, because that's exactly how I remember this place.
little backstory there. Joey and Dylan used to live together. So if you're not one of our OG folks, you wouldn't know that.
The home sweet home feeling, huh?
Yeah. That could in some ways be interpreted as a dig, but I guess facts are never really a dig, are they?
God damn. Jesus Christ. Double whammy right out the gate. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Yes, my house is hell right now, but at least it ain't falling apart like it is in Texas.
That's funny because it's true, and my house is literally falling apart. I'm actively wondering if an engineer should come out or if I should just kind of take the insurance when it comes. Speaking of insurance, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, Dylan. How's it work? Because you've already done the work to the house, right? How does that work with the adjuster, the insurance stuff? The tearing out, don't you have to have an adjuster come look?
Yeah, I had the adjuster come look and do all that, and then I was like, "Hey man, my advance." And then I sent him some pictures. And he's like, "What is?" Sent him some pictures, and he's like, "Who's your contractors doing that? Why are they tearing everything out?" And I'm like, "It's me, man. You need to hurry up." I know what I'm doing. I don't need people to do it, but as far as I know, it's confusing as hell. I honestly still don't understand it.
I thought if you fix the stuff, then they won't send you the money or something. I don't know.
They've got it from because my neighbor's gone through it. They want to see, because if you have a mortgage, they have technically a lien on your house.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is they'll send the money to your mortgage company, and then they'll dribble it out over time. And then your mortgage company will send people out to do an investigation and make sure that you're using the money to go towards the house.
Right.
So that way they're getting their investment return back or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So if you've already done all the work yourself, you got to keep all the receipts and everything that you're doing. But it's hard to do if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to take all the work. So anyway, it's frustrating. I'm still working through it.
This sounds like one of those situations where I get to benefit immediately from this. Joey's going to get the opportunity to benefit from this down the line. I feel like the more we just fuck up through the process, our friends get to be like, hey, remember that one time you just thought you'd go ahead with it and they they didn't give you the 40 grand.
Yeah, and you're like, you know what? Just burn the house to the ground. Don't even do anything. Just burn it. Arson.
You know, it's
Restart.
solid investment strategy. You can't go wrong. Buy Section 8, burn Section 8,
Burn
move
Section
on.
8. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Hire a friend, have a little bonfire. Things get out of control. Get a little nice check. That's all.
Just wait till next hurricane season because you've almost lost it like twice now. So
Yeah.
I feel like third time's the charm.
When the next hurricane comes through, just put a wood chipper out front and just send it all through during the wood chipper.
Just don't do anything next time.
Yeah.
How much is your home insurance? Because like from what I've heard, like that's like national news. Florida having issues with like insurance companies not being able to get approved or keep some.
Well, what I've understood from it is that if you're the last, let's say you're the last insurance company in the state, right? You can't not insure. You have to insure. You're required to insure in the state. A lot of companies have left so they can get out of not insuring people.
Yeah.
But one thing Citizens is doing right now is they sent notes to everyone like, hey, here's 3 options. Which one are you going to go with? But you have to make a decision by a certain date.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you get just put on one of the other plans. But Citizens has been the cheapest out of all the options. They're just really hoping you choose somebody else.
Really?
Not theirs. Yeah. And then for flood insurance, there's not many people that are taking on flood, but thankfully for my house, because it was built in the 50s, I guess there's a clause in flood insurance in Florida that if a house was built before a certain date, for instance, mine is built in the 50s, I get grandfathered into the old flood rates, like older flood rates.
Oh.
So I'm not paying nowhere near what a lot of other people are paying on flood
Really?
insurance. It's still high, but it's nowhere near what other people are paying. Yeah, because I am in the flood. Like if you were to be like, here's an example of what a flood zone looks like when it's almost in the ocean. This neighborhood. So it's just I'm just lucky. All the other new, like if I were to tear down my house though and build a new home on the property, it would then go into the newer rates though. And screw that.
So is that part of the plan to rebuild on this part? Because you have a huge lot.
Yeah. The idea is to rent this property out until, I don't know, many years down the road when the property value's up, and then just eventually sell it, because the new people that are going to buy are definitely just going to tear down the lot, the house.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like probably 10, 15 years before I go and do anything like that. So I'll just hold on and rent out the property, and then eventually someone will buy out the big lot. My neighbor has even said he'll go and sell the lot with me down the road, and that turns into over an acre almost of size in this area, and with a big corner lot, right? So that almost could double the value of the property. So there's a lot of potential, but it's a waiting game.
How satisfying would it be to tear your own house down too? You're like, hey, I'll sell you the property. It's not gonna be cheap. But what I will do is I'll come burn this motherfucker to the ground.
Hey, there's a clause. I'm gonna sell the property to you, but I get to be the one to demo it. You don't get to
That's like one of those crypto clauses, right? Like they were doing with home contracts. Like whoever ends up wanting to tear this down, they have to let you be the one to bulldoze it.
Yeah, I get to go. You pay for the bulldozer. I'll go out there, but I want a sledgehammer. I don't want a bulldozer at first. I want to
take my time. What was that movie, The Cabin?
Swing.
Where the lady smashes the guy's ankle so he can't go anywhere. You're like,
Misery.
Shh, misery, right? Like, I'm gonna take my time.
I'm gonna take my time. Each little tile. Yeah, but it's an old home. It's got a lot of character to it. It's been well taken care of. It's just I'm the one stuck when we have these big floods that we haven't had in 20 years, and all of a sudden we get back-to-back years of it, So, and then the contractors I have, I'm gonna call them out to EB3 Solutions. Need to step it the hell up here in St. Petersburg so I can get a new bathroom and have a toilet.
So that's the holdup. You're just waiting on the contractors to finish your bathroom.
Now we got the electric done. The inspectors came, so now the city has to improve the inspectors' approval, I guess, and then once they're done, we can move forward with tile and drywall and all that. But we're just waiting on the city approval. And they're like, it should be done anytime now. And I'm like, that's cool if it's done anytime now. But was it going to be another week or two before we get the tile and drywall?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, I got my, you know how I handle things when it comes to owners, and they're about to get it this week. And we'll just see what direction that goes.
Oh, yeah, a couple paths for you. I'm really unattached what path we go down at this point. So you just let me know. How do you want this to work out, big boy?
I will. My neighbor's like, if he wasn't fixing his own problems at his house, he's like, if I wasn't doing my own problems, I'd just tell you to cancel the contract with him and we'll knock it out in a week.
Yeah.
And I agree with him. We could, but I'm like, we're stuck here now at this point, and he's fixing his own house at the moment. So.
Well, Joey, aren't you glad you get to deal with all this? No, you don't.
No, not really.
You decided to take a different
route. The
route.
townhouse was, she renovated a lot of it, and then I just kind of just popped right in. I slid right in.
That's quite literally.
A nice spot to be, brother. So how's the living together life? How's that treating you?
Dude, it's gone really well so far. I mean, because I kind of handle my own shit. Like, I cook most of my own meals and kind of take care of my own area. So she doesn't feel like she has to like mother me or clean up after me. So I think like that's like the absolute most critical thing. And because of that, it's made the transition like super easy. So
yeah,
we haven't had that like typical like getting on each other's nerves like shit. So it's gone pretty well.
That's unfortunate. I mean,
well, don't you have your?
You're hoping for something better.
Yeah.
Well, he has his own room to play his guitar in, so
Yeah.
the guitar is not in the house. Yeah,
that would have been maybe a deal breaker. Like, I was playing it like right next to her the whole time, but
yeah. So the guitar sound hasn't trickled into her living quarters yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Now we have 2 dogs in the house, and I'm like, I've never felt like the house is so big, and when you have 2 large dogs in a space that want to be in your space, then instantly you feel like the space shrinks. And I think humans are the same thing. Like, when I lived by myself in like an 800 square foot like studio, I'm like, this is perfect. But you have 2 people in like a 2-bedroom house, and it's just people's stuff being around. You feel like the space is so much smaller. So it's definitely good. It sounds like you have a room just for like a man cave kind of setup, or an office, or what?
Yeah, we have a bonus room above the garage, and it's like actually detached from the rest of the townhouse. So like, I can be as loud as I want, and like she'll never hear anything. So
That's nice. That's really nice.
And we also have a puppy now, so that kind of helped bring us together a little bit. Taking care of the
same
little
puppy
guy.
you showed me, the little black dog.
Yep, little mini dachshund, little
So
wiener
cute.
dog.
So cute.
He's the fucking best.
I get those Snapchats every day from him. He's just like running around.
Joe, you still use Snapchat? The both of you fellas, y'all still use Snapchat?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just for
Really?
individual stuff.
Mm-hmm. All the incriminating stuff we just
You're right.
send to each other for sure.
Yeah.
We don't need that on Instagram, you know.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I've used Snapchat. Every now and then a friend will ping me and be like, "Did you see what I sent you on Snapchat?" And I'll re-download it and see like, I don't know, a dozen or so kind of like different contacts send me stuff over the time. I just thought Snapchat faded into oblivion. I didn't know that was still a thing.
It's made a little resurgence, I think.
No, I'm carrying the torch, man.
Yeah, just show me.
Single-handedly.
I'm dying on this hill.
I want to know, who are the folks that still use Facebook?
Boomers. My dad. My
Yeah.
dad and my stepmom. So that's 2 right there.
Businesses that still think they need to use Facebook as a business thing.
Yeah.
Josh Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
That man makes a post every other week on there. Like it's Twitter. He makes his posts on there.
Did you guys get on Threads when that came around?
No.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's no point.
That
There's-
died in like 3 days.
I know. I made an account and I was just like, for what? I mean, I feel like
And
once
then
you find that the places you want to be on, I mean, maybe that's just with age too, right? Like,
Yeah.
you find the app and you're like, this is good.
Well, everyone was like, oh, we're leaving X because Elon Musk owns it now, blah, blah, blah. We're going over to Threads. And then like a week later, they're back to making their posts on X. Like they never even left.
So is Twitter officially named X now? Like that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Officially X.
When did that happen?
A few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made the rebranding. But it's been a wild ride with Elon on X, but I'm taking a break from it because it's been nothing but World War III for the past like couple weeks. So
Yeah.
I just couldn't. Every other video was like, another terrorist attack in Israel. I'm like, I can't deal with this.
Have you guys like felt the tension from that? Like
yeah.
It like feels like the more news I get about that, the more I feel my nervous, like my anxiety kind of like rack it up a little bit.
Didn't we deploy troops? Like Biden went over there. He's over there right now. Didn't we like deploy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not great.
I look at it and my tension start going up and I go, how does this affect me at all?
It's quite literally you can't do.
I can't do jack shit. What am I going to do? Joe go show up at the Pentagon like, put me out there, coach. I could do something. No, there ain't nothing I can do. I got a world of problems here that I got my own war going on in this house trying to figure out shit. I ain't got time to worry about the other side of the world. That's how I look at it.
But isn't that wild? Like that's the nature of war too. I would like a wide berth of folks that are involved in war, actively pulling the trigger, are like, I don't want to be here. I didn't want this. You know,
we needed an off ramp for Ukraine because Ukraine was like an abysmal failure. Over 400,000 troops in Ukraine are dead.
I don't know that off ramp. I think we're still deciding which exit to take. I think we're where the interstate starts to do that fork and the car is kind of undecided. Do we want to keep going this route, or are we ready to peel off and stop at Burger King?
Did you notice how this happened? This happened a week after we ousted McCarthy as our speaker. So like once the funding for Ukraine literally stopped, this happened. So like I can't imagine that this was a coincidence. Maybe I'm too cynical. I don't know.
I mean, I've watched a fair amount to try and understand the whole speaker situation, but it just seems like so much nepotism and backdoor dealing. And actually, I watched a video today from Mitt Romney where like the new person they were trying to nominate today, I suppose they got shut down. And he was like, this guy's literally never even sponsored a bill that's passed. He's never even had a bill of his own pass. And it just seems like the politicians that make the most noise. He's like, if you ask anyone that's younger, not like a older, your prototypical conservative or Democrat or whatever, right? If you ask someone our age, like who are the congressmen and women that you know, the only chance that you would know them is because they make a lot of noise. Like they're on social media or, like the loudest, most outspoken ones. He's like, that's kind of the currency of politics these days. It's not the folks that can actually help us do anything. And I was like, I think that's the second thing that Mitt Romney said. We talked about something not too long ago. Remember, Dylan? It was like, that's the second thing where I'm like, I'm really on page with Mitt Romney right now. I never thought I'd see the day where I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, he's not to be like a politician now. Now that he's not going to rerun, he's like, now I'll actually speak the truth on some shit. I won't talk like a politician now.
The only thing I like is that like the elite, like the uniparty elite in DC hate this guy, hate Jim Jordan. And to me, that is a great sign because maybe he's actually a good person. Like just because you sponsored bills doesn't mean that that's a good thing, Right. There's been a lot of really shitty bills that have eroded our civil liberties that have been passed through. So
that's a good point too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and it's just like when it comes to politics in general. I mean, I saw a poll come out the other day that Trump again is like running away, like DeSantis and his any ability to gain an audience, grow a following. His momentum just, it seems like month over month is getting crushed.
He needs to bow out. Like DeSantis lost. Like it breaks my heart to see because he's done such a great job here, but it's like, dude, your campaign has been like an abysmal failure.
I'm really wondering, I am still super curious when Biden's going to bow out. I mean, there's no shot that dude's going to go another victory lap in a wheelchair, is he?
No. But there's been chatter about Gavin Newsom from California stepping
Mhm.
into the ring. So he might be like the next one to carry on for like the establishment kind of DNC party.
Mhm.
But what's interesting now is that RFK went independent. Did you guys see
Mhm.
that?
Yeah.
So there's
Oh, wow.
arguments on both sides, like who is he going to drain more votes from? And I think, he's a Kennedy. He's a lifelong Democrat. He's still a liberal at the end of the day. Maybe he's more center left, but I think he's going to draw more votes from the left than he would from the right.
Yeah. I'd love to see him get like a 15% split. I think the highest we've seen is like what, like 5, 4, 6, as far as like draining votes in the past
Yeah.
from independents.
Like Ross Perot was the best one, and he had like maybe 20%.
The
That was in
best
the
one was
90s.
the one that got elected. Who was that? That was it the Moose Party? Is that who I'm thinking of?
I don't. I can't.
The Moose Party.
I've never heard of that.
No, it's one of our famous hunting presidents. Who's that dude? That
Teddy
murdered someone?
Roosevelt?
Yeah, was it Teddy?
No. Was it? Oh, maybe.
Teddy Roosevelt
did-
was a hunter. Yeah, he was an
Yeah, didn't he
outdoorsman.
create all the national parks?
Yeah, he helped advocate
Yeah.
for all the national parks and all that. But Colton's like, didn't he murder someone?
He did.
No, that was not.
Yeah, Teddy
Teddy?
killed someone. Yeah, he shot him in the
What?
back with a shotgun on like a hunting accident.
Pulled a Dick Cheney.
Or was it
Yeah,
Dick Cheney?
That was Dick Cheney.
Ah, okay. Yeah, old Dick. Dick right in the back.
Oh,
Oh,
Dickie.
Dick. And that guy didn't even sue or nothing. Like, come on. Did you know that guy didn't file charges or sue or nothing? He did jack shit. That must have been a nice little settlement he got under the table.
For what now?
If you sue me, I'll do to you what I did to Iraq, and that probably shut that guy up real quick.
Yeah. I did it once, boy, and I failed. I will not fail again. Don't you worry.
Okay, yeah, the only independent is saying George Washington. So, solid start there. Somebody's going to listen to this podcast and send us the right information. They never fail.
Look, they all just need to take mushrooms and we'll be fine, right? Like the whole world, just spike the entire world's water with mushrooms. It'll weed people out. Yeah, there'll be some people that go in psychotic state, but what doesn't cause a psychotic state anymore? You mentioned Trump to some people and they freak out.
I'm
right?
sorry, hold on. Millard Fillmore, the 13th president, was the last president not to be affiliated with either the Democratic or Republican parties. But there was another something or another in there. Maybe he didn't win.
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to believe that, like, every election cycle I get into folks about this. It's like, why is it silly to think that your vote matters, and that if there's a candidate that you're like, that's the person I would want, I vote for them, instead of looking at it as it's either red or blue, or you suck because you're hurting my chances for red or blue. Like, that just conceptually, that doesn't make sense as like the basis of an argument.
Surprised there hasn't been a pink party yet. Just a woman candidate came out and was like, I'm making the pink party. And that's what it is.
Hillary Clinton definitely tried that.
Did she?
Yeah, well,
Oh.
she changed her slogan so many times. Like, that was one of the things the political scientists were looking back, and they were like, that was one of the things that probably really hurt her chances, is that she didn't have like "Make America Great Again." She kept
Wasn't killing
changing her
people.
slogan to different things to try and resonate with different crowds, and didn't just like hammer a lane and be like, this is what I'm running with. She was like,
She also just didn't campaign, barely. She like stayed in like the most liberal cities. You know?
it is weird how much of a science there is to getting elected.
Yeah.
Just how much money. It's like, it's the only job. What did Rogan say about that, or some talking head? It's the only job in the world you pay $100 million to get a, you spend $100 million to get paid $150,000.
Huh.
Yeah, or 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's only like 200,000.
Yeah.
It's the votes is the currency. Yeah.
The currency is probably like good old oil money in the back pocket. Be like, hey, don't forget, you pass this bill in a couple years, you're going to give a talk at Goldman Sachs for $18 million. You ever made $18 million an hour? because that's coming.
That's true. They all do make their money after
And
their
for your finger
little
paints,
election.
right? Like you can get money by having your son make finger paints, and they
Yeah.
they could give your son like a $500,000 for each of his little paintings. So that's another way you can make money.
I think about the possibilities when they
Allegedly.
start rescheduling drugs. I mean, for Biden's son to come out and have his own line of private labeled amphetamines and off the counter like mushrooms, I'm buying them.
Just lean into it.
Yeah, dude. Like, come on. Like
Own it.
Each gram of Prez Sons is
or you see
comes
Hunter
in.
Biden do like the Instagram coach vibe on like how to do backdoor dealings in another country. Here's a course for $397.
how to negotiate with your hooker.
NASCAR ads with a hooker in
Parentheses,
the
and
car.
don't kill her.
It's all good. How to not turn on your webcam 101.
I am curious though. I mean, like it feels like, I mean, if I was to forecast out, I mean, Gavin Newsom probably looks like the Democratic guy. I don't see anyone that's going to get in the way of Trump, but it is amazing the amount of stuff they keep putting in front of Trump, and it's like,
Dude, I have a funny feeling, dude. He can make it back in. I feel like he's slowly like inching his way back. Whether you like the guy or not, I just think the farther we get away from his presidency and the more we see from, the establishment, it doesn't have to necessarily be like just Democrat or Republican, but just what the establishment party has given us the last 3 years. It's like, I think every day we inch toward him going back to the White House. And I mean, maybe it doesn't happen, but do you feel a funny feeling that like the plates are kind of shifting back in his favor again?
I think
Whether
so.
you like the guy or not, it just
Yeah.
seems almost like an inevitability.
I openly don't like him because of the divisiveness that
Yeah.
comes with it. But at the same time, I don't know. I definitely don't like Biden. And it's
Right.
not necessarily just Biden, right? It's the establishment that comes along with that. Like, it feels like we're watching a president that's weekend at Burns. It's like
Yeah.
the dude is dead on arrival everywhere they take him. And I don't know what
He's
you could
not
put in
running
front
the
of Trump at
country.
this point.
No,
No.
he's not running the country at all. No. Not even Kamala's running the country. Who
Yeah,
knows
no.
who's running the country at this point?
It doesn't even feel like we have a leader that will give a firm handshake. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, what do you put in front of Trump to slow his roll? Because you're right, it just feels like it's just gaining more and more traction. But how do you even?
I don't know. I think a lot of people saw what he did when it came to just the like as being a business person in
Yeah.
the White House and was able to negotiate things and bring the cost of living down a
Mhm.
little bit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we lose that negotiator. All of a sudden everything rockets back up. I think people are just tired. Like at this point, they're just like, I just want to be able to afford things again. And I
Yeah.
was able to do that with him.
Right.
So if we can put someone back in to help with negotiations to bring the rates back down, I think a lot of people are thinking like that. That's
Yeah.
why it's inching back towards him.
That's what I'm thinking. It's outrageous what inflation has done in the last couple of years. And like, you don't really have too many directions to go. So most people naturally point towards the president. But it's not just the president. I mean, the president is a figurehead, but like it all
Sure.
starts there and trickles down into the ones that are really responsible for passing legislation or pulling levers in the market. And
Well, there's two sides to it. It's the central bank, it's the monetary policy from the central bank, but then it's the fiscal policy from the government.
Mhm.
So it's a really interesting times right now that a lot of people really aren't seeing. And maybe I've been following some really good geopolitical analysts within like the Bitcoin space and like the investing space. And right now, their theory is that Jerome Powell and Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan, it's basically them versus the world as far as monetary policy. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to repatriate all of the American dollars that went overseas into like European banks. And by raising our interest rates, all of that money leaves those banks and comes back to us to receive that yield. Now, the reason why that's important is because a lot of the like European kind of socialist experiment that's going on with the EU really is like dead on arrival if America regains its control over its own monetary policy. So for the last like 10, 20 years, we basically kept rates near zero, which has allowed Europe to basically print as much money as they want and, you know, build their society in the vision that they want and not really suffer any consequences. And we have now suffered at the expense of that. So I think if we want to get back to a country that is growing consistently year over year, has a healthy economy, there's an argument to be made that we've printed too much money and we've gone past an event horizon where it's a near certainty that the currency is going to collapse. But there's another argument that if we keep rates higher where they are now and we repatriate that money, that we can create a new bedrock for our country to like reindustrialize our country. Because you see, once we started raising rates the last couple of years, we've started to bring a lot of jobs back. Like the era of globalization is kind of ending. The world is going to start shifting towards like a multipolar world where there's going to be like pockets. Like there's North America, right? There's the EU, there's BRICS, which is like Russia, China, India, and all those countries. And there's going to be like factions of countries instead of everyone kind of cooperating together like we have been for the last 40 years. I think we're permanently shifting towards a world where we're more regional. And I think that's a really important step, is for us to regain control over our monetary policy. So I think I might be the only person here who's actually like rooting for Jerome Powell in the Federal Reserve, because I think he might go down in the history books as the guy who saved America.
Hot take.
Definitely a hot take. A lot of people are against Jerome Powell right now because he keeps jacking rates up. That's interesting.
What say you a year from now if things were to crater, housing prices just totally 08? What's your take then?
I still think he's going to stay the course, because ultimately it's not so much about, there's short, medium, and longer term goals for this. I think the shorter term is just to smash the EU, like to smash their financial markets and to smash their control over our money. So that there's going to be terrible short-term consequences for this. Like, I'm not saying we're going to get out of this unscathed. Like, we're probably going to have a really nasty recession because of this. And that's going to cause medium-term pain. But I think longer-term, that's going to help set us up for success in the future.
Yeah. I think it's just weird that we've kicked the can so many times with printing money. It kind of started with that stimulus package. It feels like, where, I don't know. It's just tough.
It started in 08.
What's that?
It started in 08 with all the bailouts.
Yeah.
And then we had 10 years of low rates and, quantitative easing, which is the Federal Reserve expanding the money supply. So they have like a very small amount of tools that they can use. So they can raise or lower interest rates. They can increase the monetary supply, or they can lower the monetary supply. And that's called quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. And really all they're doing is they're issuing or they're buying treasuries from their member banks, which was like JP Morgan and, the too big to fail banks, basically. Or they're letting those same treasuries expire. So how a bond, like a government bond, works. Like if you set the term for 3 months, you buy a bond 3 months later, you get your money back, but then the bond goes away off the balance sheet. It just disappears.
Mhm.
So yeah, this whole like modern monetary theory experiment started in '08, and well, man, it really started when the Federal Reserve was created. I read a really great book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which was the story about how the Federal Reserve was created.
Hmm.
And the first half of it talked about like how, gold itself is like geopolitical money, and how it controlled governments and outlasted governments. And we've had several central banks throughout America's history, and they've all like boomed and busted and collapsed for their own reasons. And in 1913, there was basically a conspiracy of the Nelson Aldrich and the Rothschilds and a few other really key players to kind of push a bill through Congress to allow for a central bank to take control over a monetary policy. And it was passed like at midnight, and like no one read the thing. And so ever since then, we've been, stuck with a central bank. And ever since then, we've inflated our money supply. We've devalued our currency. And I think at this point, we're almost at the point of no return.
In your mind, like, what do you think like a actual point of no return looks like? I mean, Venezuela, right? But
Yeah. So right now, we've raised interest rates to a point where the interest expense on our own debt is higher than our defense budget. That you could say that is a point of no return. So now,
yeah.
literally, our entire budget's paying the interest on our own debt. That's not sustainable.
Mm.
What does the debt look like for other countries to us? I've never really heard anything about that.
That's where it gets interesting, because you have a unique power when you're the world reserve currency. Because if you have a debt problem, then you can just inflate the currency even more so that the percentage of debt to the monetary supply goes down. And but the problem with that is that weakens everyone else's position as well. So when other countries are borrowing in your currency, they don't have that same power. So that even though you can do that, you can weaken your own currency. It doesn't last forever. Like, you're going to weaken it to a point where it will break. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think it might happen in our lifetime.
What do you think about the like Africa is now, several countries in Africa are now siding with China and Russia, the BRIC, that's what it was, the BRIC.
Mm-hmm.
They're not accepting US dollars anymore, some of them. Like, I'm wondering, would that help us? Because now it can allow us to focus more on our own central banking, or do you think that's losing position, especially with African countries?
I've heard both sides of this. If other countries collectively start to trade in other currencies, that's less transactions in dollars, by volume. But and Jerome Powell himself even said in a press conference that a world could run with multiple reserve currencies. It doesn't necessarily have to be one. Then there's other arguments to say, like, oh, well, if we lose reserve currency, then, all of our financial assets, everything that we own will be destroyed. And I understand both, but I think here's a really good argument about why America will keep winning is because there's always market manipulation to some extent, but we have the most transparent and we have the most open capital markets. So other nations and other, huge firms can dump a bunch of money into our markets and not have the fear of anyone confiscating it. Like, they could never do the same thing with Russia or China.
Mm-hmm.
Like, investors could never put that amount of money into a Chinese market. So
yeah.
I think that's a reason why we are well positioned financially to carry this forward, at least maybe for the next 50 years.
Right. Yeah, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, we saw that with Russia once the border started getting closed down, and companies were like, okay, I guess all that R&D, all of the locations we had there, it's a wash. You know, they just had to walk away from. Some companies got wrecked on that, like automotive companies for sure. I know McDonald's, they were like, we don't know what to do here. We're just gonna have to walk away from that one.
They did, didn't they? They were just like, sorry, we can't do anything here. Oh, and they started turning. I read a report about that a while ago, where they started Russia started opening up McDonald's equivalents.
Yeah,
and they just started turning the McDonald's into like similar names and imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just a little different. Welcome to McDonald's.
Probably like left the arches up and just put like a little missile on one end and a little plume of smoke on the other.
Like a hammer and sickle on one end.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so easy. I think it's like human nature to get wrapped up in like worst case scenario. But when you have like the nature of kind of what's going on,
you think Putin? I mean, not Putin. You think Powell and the other leaders of the central banks meet at all, or do you think they keep pretty?
Yeah, they do.
Separate?
I mean, have you ever heard of like the World Economic Forum in Davos?
Yeah.
They do go to those conferences in Bilderberg. Like they all go to those conferences. Oh, okay. Let me circle back to that theory that I was positing about Jerome Powell and our Federal Reserve and how he's trying to smash the EU. So back in 2021, when inflation was starting to rear its ugly head, and our rates were still near zero, and we were still like printing money and issuing bonds into the market, treasuries into the market. Powell went to Davos, and Christine Lagarde, who is the head of the European Central Bank, it's basically her arch nemesis. Jerome Powell's arch nemesis is the head of the European Central Bank. She gave a press conference on how she wanted to print $40 trillion over 10 years for their 2030 green agenda. And they wanted their fourth industrial revolution, which is basically, I think that's just them wanting to control the world in their version of like tech tyranny. That's my own personal thought. But yeah, she gave this whole presentation on how central banks need to fight climate change, and they wanted to print $40 trillion over 10 years. Well, obviously, we all know that's going to destroy our currency. And Jerome Powell went up to the press podium and was like, yeah, so we're a bank, and we don't have a climate agenda. We have an inflation agenda, and we have, a jobs market agenda, and we're going to stick to that. And then 3 months later, he started jacking up rates. And then throughout 2022, they tapered off their money printing, and then they raised rates 500% in a year. So directly because of what him and people like Jamie Dimon saw what they wanted, they knew that it was gonna destroy our society in a hurry. So they had to do something that was going to stave that off. So if you jack rates by 500%, they can't play these little games like, these little experiments trying to revolutionize the world in their horrible dystopian vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's also weird. Like, why do they feel the need to print money? Like, why is that a thing?
That is the ultimate superpower, and it's intoxicating because if you're the closest people to the money spigot, you're going to benefit the most from that. Because really what we saw from 2020, the whole COVID era, and really the last 10 years, what's been affected the most from all this money printing? Assets.
Yeah. Cost of living, assets. Yeah.
Stocks, right? When you're closest to the money supply, most of your money is going to be in assets, right? You're going to want, if you're going to be devaluing currency, you want to put that money immediately into assets, right? So if you're going to print money, then other people are going to do the same thing. It's going to push up the price of assets. So it's going to directly benefit you to print money.
Right.
It's the easy way out. Also, I feel like that's kind of like what Venezuela was doing, right? They were just like, oh, we'll just keep solving the problem, keep solving the problem. And they kept doing that, and then it just finally tanked.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we have any shortage of hyperinflation, events to look back to. It's not like that. That's the thing I was saying earlier. It's like when you're having these kind of conversations, it's tough not to go to worst case scenario, but we've already seen it. It's not like this experiment is one that we have seen the conclusion to. But like some of the stuff you brought in, like I didn't even think about, right? Like the fact that we're not Russia, we're not China, we're not the government's not just gonna suddenly shut down,
What's the
outside investment.
What's those? Remember, those things like in The Big Short, they always talked about, like if you see people spending in the investment market, if you always saw them buying seafood towers, think something was coming because people were overspending frugally, or if or the stripper index. Like if the strippers start making less money, they're starting to see people are coming in, spending less and less. I'm wondering with this new iPhone that came out, because usually people like to re-up on the iPhones. I'm wondering if they're going to see a huge hit on how much people are spending on new iPhones that came out. And I feel like once you start hitting corporation, I'm waiting for it to start hitting corporations. People spending less because their savings are depleted. They can't afford to do all this. And once it starts hitting corporations, then Powell's going to start getting that more pressure, right? And will he hold to it still if he's getting that pressure from corporations at that point? That you're starting to see their earnings go down because people are having to spend less. The only people that are going to stay consistent are people that are in the survival business, really.
So I think an ultimate tell, I think he will, because last March, dude, we had a bunch of bank failures.
Yeah.
He didn't cut rates. He said, you know what? We're going to bail out the depositors. We're not going to bail out the stockholders or the bondholders. But if you had money in this bank, we will help you. But they didn't cut rates.
But it was
increased rates.
But that was more of smaller banks in tech central locations.
No,
right?
The size of those banks was the same as the whole 2008 collapse. It was a smaller number of banks, but the same amount of money was the same as 2008.
Sure.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but it was the big banks that still came back and bought.
That blew my mind. I didn't realize that.
It was the big banks that still came and helped save those little banks. They came and just bought their clientele and helped them out. I knew that because it affected a lot of my clients of what was going on. But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't affect everybody in the sense of it affected those clients in those two banks. It was those two main banks that it really happened to. And the reason why those funds were so much is because it was mostly the rich tech people in those locations, which is where most of our funds are anyways. So what I'm saying is it affected that small portion. So he didn't really have too much pressure come down onto him from across the country of people and corporations. People in Idaho could still afford to buy their shit.
They leaned into the 1% as opposed to the majority of folks that would feel that squeeze.
Now when you start getting the majority of folks not able to go out to corporations like Apple, Google, seeing their rates go down, Walmart, Target, whatever, and their earnings start going down a little bit because of that. I mean, I'll give you an example with TriNet, right? I'm no longer with that company, so I'll talk about it. TriNet's earnings are starting to deplete because they mostly cater to white-collar businesses. Well, a lot of companies, because they're the premium, are starting not to be able to afford, how the white-collar businesses are going now. Their earnings are going down because people are spending less and less on such a premium product. And their earnings are starting to go down now because of that. And so once that starts happening with Target, Walmart, all these other corporations, I'm wondering once that pressure starts coming back to Powell from these corporations, what's going to happen at that point? Because Powell's not getting pressure. If he gets pressure from the public, that he doesn't really affect him, right? He's like, well, we got to save the company, we got to save America, and I'm going to help. But once you start getting pressure from the corporations, what's going to happen? I'm curious. What do you think on that?
No, I think he's going to stick to his guns.
Think so?
Yeah, because I think he has like all the sponsorship he needs from Jamie Dimon. I think they're like thick as thieves in this.
Yeah, I guess too, because that's the Fed Reserve is. I mean, the Fed Reserve is it really attached? Like a politician's attached to corporations, right? But is the Fed Reserve it really isn't? It's its own independent.
Yeah, so I think all of like the head bankers in our country on Wall Street, they basically got around and said, look, we need to do this and it's going to hurt. But if you want to keep all your fancy toys, like this is going to be absolutely necessary to do.
I do like my fancy toys.
So we're going to suffer the consequences. We're probably going to have a terrible recession, but get to keep our markets.
I wonder what that even looks like, though, a terrible recession. You know, because we keep talking about that. I mean, my mind mainly goes to houses. You know, like when we see housing prices start to go back to really what they should be. I mean, they've been sticking around at art prices where the, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So they're like, you know, I get it. For me, I see it the most when you insure your home. You know, like my house is insured for approximately $200,000 less than what it's taxed on. So the insurance company's running all these numbers. They know what it's really worth at the end of the day to rebuild that structure. You know, if it gets wiped off the face of the map, they're like, okay, here's what we're in it for, right? And then you just tack on a little bit above that for probably what a nominal rate should be for the home. And so for my home to be floating somewhere around like 35 to 40% above that number, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of correction available in the housing markets in general. And then you feel that, well, at the same time, though, we don't have a lot of those variable loans out in the market. And that was what really caused '08, is that they were able to approve anybody because they just said, like, hey, we're just going to attach your record low interest to a balloon. And you got faith in the market, right? You know, the American market's not going anywhere. So after that, with these really low interest rates, they were approving people on fixed mortgages. So it'd have to be something with the jobs, I guess, right? Like that's the only thing I could see really cratering the market is people losing their jobs.
I'm curious what the student loans is going to do.
I don't know. They keep pushing it back. I mean, that was supposed to hit like last month, right?
Yeah.
Did it not?
Yeah. No, it hit. It did, and then it did hit. People are having to pay it back, but then they just made a new, you know, election time's coming back around. They just came back around like, we're going to try to push it for it again and try to do it. And every time the election cycle comes around,
it's the silliest thing to me to just forgive all that debt. Like, write it at 0%, let people pay it back. Definitely let the people working for the state, the educators. I don't think any educator should have to pay for student loans. Like, that's my personal take. Like, if you are deciding to go teach
they do
high school,
if you do it for 10 years, I mean, that's the thing. You stick to it to 10 years, then you don't have to do it. It's like a postal worker. You don't you do a postal work, you have to do it for 10 years.
That was part of what they got passed in this. Like, that part of it makes sense to me.
That's been around for a long time.
No, that's
because I was looking at trying to be a postal worker post-college, and that was 10, 15 years ago. Trust me, that's been around for a long time. They're mentioning it now as like a thing that, oh, you can do this, but it's been around a long time that you can do it. That's why you can't get a job as a postal worker, because it's always filled.
The postal workers actually get paid pretty good too.
They get paid pretty good, but it's a good pay, one of the few good paying government jobs. But it's, if you have any government job and you work in that government job for 10 years, your loans will get entirely wiped out.
That's nice. You got to pay for it too, though, while the 10 years is going.
Between there and then, correct. But you can keep putting it off. Now, I don't know. What I never looked into is your loans might get wiped out, but does the interest get wiped out?
Good question.
You know,
you would think.
You would hope. But
you would hope.
if you keep putting off, because I remember when I was broke, and I couldn't make my student loan payments, They allow me to push it out, but not make a payment for 6 months, but the interest kept building up.
Oh yeah, the interest ain't going to stop. Like that's
It
the
ain't
part
gonna
that
stop.
doesn't. Like what are the fees associated with holding that debt? You know, on a subsidized student loan, a federal government subsidized loan.
Mm-hmm.
What are the fees associated with actually carrying that note? You know, how
Nothing.
much? You know,
It's just added on
0.01%. You know, running through
Yeah.
servers. So, like, that's the thing that just totally blows my mind. It is definitely a credit, an investment into the future of the economy to allow people go get a higher education. And I'm sure there's an argument for not letting that be a runaway train. You know, you put some bumpers on it for people not being able to abuse the system. But if a kid wants to go to college for 4 years and get educated to get a higher paying job, you know, to be someone that like can really contribute to the economy at large, like how's that not a net benefit?
But
for the government?
where is those funds coming from? And then if they're not getting paid back, because there's hundreds of thousands of people not paying their loans back,
Yeah.
do those just eventually collapse, or they just keep them on the books as never paying them back? Right? Like it's such a large
Print more
number
money.
now.
Well, yeah,
that they
those
just keep it
institutions
open.
collapse, and then all the people who are currently studying with loans from them, they
What
have
if
to
Fannie
leave
Mae
college.
collapse? Fannie Mae collapses for
Horrible.
whatever reason.
No one's shedding a tear.
No, like where does that go? Does that hurt the economy, or is that just like, oh, it's a write-off, gone?
I mean, think of any other major company, insurance company, loan company that dissolved. I never fucking lost sleep over any of them. Never felt the difference in the market.
Yeah, just another company will just buy those assets like pennies on the dollar, and
Mhm.
they
You still owe it.
You would still owe that money.
You
yeah,
still owe it. They just get to buy your loan.
and that's what
Mhm.
happened in the bank collapse. Like J.P. Morgan, like bought like a couple of those banks, pennies on the dollar,
Mhm.
and just put that right on their balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
The
So it doesn't go
depositors like
away.
us didn't see a difference.
But it's the forgiveness thing that I don't get. You know, like you're not correcting the root of the
Right.
issue, right?
And that argument is that's not allowing a free market to actually function.
Right.
Right. And I actually agree with that. I mean, if you're going to bail out like bondholders or depositors, then can you really say that we've ever had truly a free market? I don't think you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or the billions and billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine. And there's so many other things. Like, I get it. You're getting into like geopolitical kind of climate there. But like, dude, we got a lot of fucking problems here. And I understand why we want to play a proxy war. I genuinely do. But like, I mean, hindsight 2020, if we took half of that money and did any kind of humanitarian type of effort in America or any type of public benefit effort with a fraction of that money, like, dude, there's no way we can slow down the war machine and reindustrialize something stateside aside from fracking that might benefit our economy and environment. Like, no one wants to put their heads together for that one. I mean, I guess there's plenty of people advocating for it, but no one wants to really listen because, you know, defense
Isn't
contracts.
there about to be potentially a government shutdown that's working towards right now?
Doesn't that happen every other month?
Yeah, they put it off for a month. They like passed funding for a month or something like that.
Yo, I feel like everyone at this point is like, yo, do y'all's damn jobs. Like
How
doing
hard
a government
is it really?
doing a government shutdown, everything's already a problem, but you keep sending money. Like imagine if there's a shutdown and then there's also a report during the shutdown that they still were able to send money to Ukraine or Egypt or Gaza, wherever. You thought there was an uprising before. Holy shit. There'd be so many pissed off people.
I'm trying to look up the congressman I follow. I think he's Jackson. Have you guys heard of him?
Stonewall Jackson?
Jeff Jackson?
No.
No.
I haven't heard of Jeff Jackson.
This guy's
JJ?
actually, dude, I would vote for president tomorrow.
JJ?
I mean, yeah, he just comes on TikTok and just talks about like what's going on. You know, like super
I might have heard
transparency.
of that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he just pops on there. He's like, "Hey, here's what's going on," just like in a very educational way, in a way where everyone can understand. And like, it's just the most bipartisan talk You know, I mean, I don't even know what party he's affiliated with. I think it's Republicans, but he's
Democrat.
a straight shooter. He's a Democrat.
Jeff Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it though. You know, it's like it feels like
North Carolina representative, so he's probably like libertarian.
We just want politicians to do like some semblance of a job, you know, like plug a couple holes in the boat that is just backdoor dealings, money flooding everywhere, and like just get some stuff passed that feels like that's a good win for America and not a bunch of people bitching.
You can just get little wins. Get everyone just back on your side a little bit.
Like, why is it so hard to have people reaching across the aisle? I mean, like, you know what? Actually, like that feels like that would. Let's sit down. We're all really smart people. We all went to like Stanford, Harvard, and fucking wherever else.
Not all of them.
A lot of these folks are super intelligent, you know, attorney backgrounds.
Bartenders in there.
You know, defense, district attorneys and shit. Like, these are really intelligent folks that like somehow their ego gets so conflated in politics where they just got to scream and shout at each other. It's like, how does that happen?
Well, I forgot who said it, but what you were talking about, Joey, earlier is that it seems like today's politics, like in order to be heard, you got to be loud, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's someone, I forgot what politician said it, but he was like, yeah, a lot of the people that you hear that are loud and up front are super quiet. They don't really say much or get stuff done on the back end. Like it's all for the camera. Once the camera turns on, that's why there's some politicians that argue there shouldn't be cameras inside the House or inside the Senate, because once those turn on, they're trying to act and try to put on this front, but then when they're behind, they don't really do much else.
Jeff Jackson, JJ, he made a video on that. He was talking about the politicians, and he's like, he was name dropping. He's like, I'm in rooms with these folks. Yeah, he's like, they are not who they portray themselves to be on the news. And he like talked about like in a favorable light when some of these people, he's like, no, she's really cool. Actually, I've had like backdoor meetings where cameras aren't there and we get a lot of stuff done. It's the moment we're sitting with cameras in the house and, you know, everyone's trying to, he's like, it doesn't make sense to me either. He's like, I wish I could give you guys something better, but he's like, it's just peacocking.
Do you think a political revolution's coming?
Feels like it, man.
I don't think so.
I don't want to say Civil War. I don't want to say that. I don't know if it'll get to that level.
But I feel like it's getting. It definitely feels like even if we're not close, we're closer than we've ever been in many long time. Yeah, for sure.
I think less revolution and more like rebranding. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's going to be like, hey, let's pick up guns and pitchforks and go at it, as much as it feels like we're just going to see poll numbers start doing wonky things and data start aggregating to pockets that maybe it hasn't before, like independent kind of stuff where I think the majority, like the middle ground America, is just kind of fed up and they just want reasonable stuff. And I
think the real race is just going to be like Trump and RFK. Like, I think that's the real race.
That'd be a good one.
I'd love to see it.
That'd be a good debate. That'd be a great debate.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And I've watched some interviews with Newsom. Newsom's sharp as a tack, man. He is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he ain't setting a great example out there.
Smart guy, but he destroyed California. So
it's like if we need someone that could fix the problem, and he made the problem worse, where he's at. I don't want.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He is sharp at attack. He could come at you with facts. He knows how to argue. I've seen him in a debate.
Yeah,
he's very smart. Mm-hmm. But then the outcome is not looking good. Like, I want someone that's got at least has produced an outcome that's looking good and has a plan and how to do it.
But when you look at how, you know, presidencies typically go, it's steer to the left ditch, steer back to the right ditch. And it's just the teeter-totter of ripping the wheel, you know? And so I think I agree with Joey. I think most people are going to look at what this presidency's done and been like, I don't want that. Okay, let's try round 2 with pressing the Trump button. And
I think there's going to be a lot of protest votes. I think people are going to vote
but where they
emotionally.
protesting?
They're not going to vote.
It's already the cities that are shit. It's already the cities that are shit that had the problem, and they're just going to continue to be shit. All those cities that had the problem and the big riots, they're already crap. let them just go ahead and do it. You do that in some of the other cities, like try to do that here in Florida, and they might go out and walk down the street. But if violence starts breaking out, people got enough weapons. They start protect. All the cities that have the weapons to protect themselves, all this, they ain't having no problems. It's all the cities with no weapons not protecting themselves.
Yeah.
So sure, if Trump gets elected and all these like riots start breaking out, those cities built that. They wanted that.
What happens when he gets elected and they protest the count of the votes, right? Because if he gets elected and he's like, no, this time they got it right, actually.
The
last time,
no, we don't need to check nothing. Republicans are like, no, we're good. We're good.
No matter what, every 4 years, that's going to be the argument. They're always going to argue the count.
Yeah, they're always going to argue the count. They're always going to say the machines got hacked. They're always going to say there's someone foreign in here hacking our machines or whatever. Every time, and you're right, and it's going to keep doing that. I think that started happening with the Kerry Bush election. They started doing that
a little bit, yeah, but it was really Trump. 2016 is when that really went into play.
Yeah. I think probably because too he had the money to be able. He had so much money on the back end to be able to be like, no, we're going to keep carrying this out. Of saying like, oh no, because he was only doing it in swing states, right? Where like, oh, if I can show that I can prove that, then I'll win. He wasn't doing it in every state. Obviously.
Did you see that Republican donors have like stopped funding every other campaign? Like they're starting to rally around Trump.
I believe that. Like they were making money. All the donors were making money under Trump, and all these other Republican representatives don't have. When they've come on and started doing their debates and everything, it's the same hoopla every time that every other Republican has said in the past.
The same warmongering,
everything.
Party. Yeah.
And when Trump comes on, like, sure, he says a lot of stuff, but in the middle of his speeches, he's like, this is what I'm going to do. Bop, 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 bop. And that's how I'm going to do it. He actually like comes with a plan when he's talking. It's like, hate him or love him, he's the only one that's coming to the table with actual game plan of how he's going to do it. And then he's going to shit on you when he's doing it too. Which is too good. But yeah, did you see that there was one Republican candidate? I forgot his name. I forgot his name, but he literally was like doing almost word for word what Obama was saying in his speech, like in debate speeches, like when they would ask him a question, he like had it almost memorized what Obama said, and he was doing it in the Republican debate.
Hey, I'm gonna let you guys shut this down. I got an alarm going off, so I gotta fix that. Just so you know. So
my battery's about to die too. So
is it?
All right, everyone.
Okay. Well, I wasn't trying to land the plane there because I mean this is actually a great
I could maybe
conversation.
go for another couple minutes.
We've lost both engines, folks. We need to take this sucker down.
My plane is making an emergency landing, but you guys could carry on. But
no, we'll turn it off here. We hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We're gonna crash land this plane.
We normally make it a little more gentle, folks. Sorry.
Let's do a podcast in a couple weeks where we actually talk about our personal lives a little bit.
Yeah, no, but this was great. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, this is good. Hope everyone give Joey a follow. Give us a follow. Thanks for everyone listening. Peace out.
Bye, guys.